Long Beach, California, August 2nd, 1964. The International Karate Championships, the biggest martial arts event in America. Masters from every style have gathered to demonstrate their skills before an audience of nearly 1,000 people. In the crowd sits a young man who has driven down from Oakland with a single purpose. He has been invited to give a demonstration, but he is unknown. No titles, no trophies, no reputation outside a small circle of students in the San Francisco Bay Area. He is 23 years old. He weighs 135 pounds. He has been in America for 5 years, washing dishes, teaching martial arts in parking lots, and dreaming of a future that seems impossibly far away. His name is Bruce Lee. In the front row sits the man who invited him, Ed Parker, the father of American Kenpo Karate, one of the most influential martial artists in the Western world, a man with connections to Hollywood, to television, to the machinery that creates stars. Ed Parker has heard rumors about this young Chinese martial artist. He has been told that Bruce Lee can do things that shouldn't be possible, that he moves with a speed that defies the eye, that he has developed techniques that challenge everything traditional martial arts teaches. Parker is skeptical. He has seen many martial artists claim to have revolutionary skills. Most of them are frauds. Some are deluded. A rare few are genuinely talented, but unable to demonstrate their abilities under pressure. He invited Bruce Lee to Long Beach to see for himself. What happens in the next few minutes will change both of their lives. It will open a door that leads to Hollywood, to global fame, to a revolution in martial arts. It will create a friendship that lasts until death. It will prove that sometimes destiny is not about luck or circumstance, but about being ready when the moment arrives. This is the story of that moment. Ed Parker's path to Long Beach was as unlikely as Bruce Lee's. He was born in Honolulu, Hawaii, in 1931, to a family with deep roots in the islands. His father was a politician. His mother was descended from Hawaiian royalty. Young Ed grew up in a world where martial arts were part of daily life, where Asian and Pacific cultures blended in ways that mainland America couldn't understand. He started training in judo as a child, then boxing. Then, at 16, he discovered Kenpo Karate through a teacher named William Chow, who had learned from James Maitos, who had brought the art from Japan. Parker was a natural, big, strong, athletic, with hands that moved faster than his size suggested. He absorbed techniques like a sponge and began adapting them almost immediately, modifying traditional movements to fit his body and his understanding of combat. In 1954, he moved to mainland America to attend Brigham Young University. He opened a karate school in Provo, Utah, one of the first on the mainland. Students came from across the region to train with him. But Parker wasn't content to simply teach what he had learned. He was an innovator, a questioner, a man who looked at traditional techniques and asked why. Why this movement? Why this timing? Why not something more efficient, more direct, more practical? He began developing what would become American Kenpo, a system that took the best of what he had learned and adapted it for Western bodies, Western minds, Western needs. He wrote books, he gave seminars, he appeared on television, demonstrating martial arts to audiences who had never seen anything like it. And in 1964, he organized the International Karate Championships in Long Beach. His goal was to bring together the best martial artists in America to share their knowledge and demonstrate their skills. He invited masters from every major style: Shotokan karate, taekwondo, judo, aikido, traditional kung fu. Anyone who could contribute to the growing American martial arts community was welcome. But he also wanted to include something new, something that would capture people's attention, something that would show that martial arts was evolving, not just preserving the past. He had heard about Bruce Lee through a mutual acquaintance. The stories seemed too good to be true. A Chinese martial artist who had developed his own approach, who could strike with blinding speed, who could do something called a one-inch punch that allegedly generated more power than a full-swing haymaker. Parker was intrigued, but he needed to see for himself. He sent an invitation to Bruce Lee. Would he be willing to come to Long Beach and demonstrate his skills? Bruce Lee said yes, immediately. For Bruce Lee, the invitation was more than an opportunity. It was a lifeline. He had been in America for 5 years, and progress had been agonizingly slow. He had opened a martial arts school in Seattle. He had attracted students. He had married Linda Emery, a fellow student who saw past his bravado to the brilliant, driven, insecure man beneath. But he wanted more. He wanted to be a star. He wanted to show the world what martial arts could be. And America, so far, had shown little interest in what a young Chinese man had to offer. Hollywood was a closed door. He had made a few trips to Los Angeles, had met with producers, had tried to convince them that he could be something new on screen. The response was always the same. We don't know how to market you. American audiences won't accept an Asian lead. Maybe a villain role, maybe a sidekick, but a star, not possible. Bruce Lee refused to accept these limitations, but refusing to accept them and actually breaking through them were two different things. He needed a platform. He needed visibility. He needed someone with connections to see what he could do and believe in him enough to open doors. Ed Parker might be that someone. On August 2nd, 1964, Bruce Lee walked into the Long Beach Municipal Auditorium with everything riding on the next few minutes. He was nervous. He would never admit it. But the stakes were enormous. This was his chance to show the American martial arts community, and by extension, the entertainment industry, that he was something special. He had prepared a demonstration that showcased his most impressive skills: the one-inch punch, the two-finger push-up, chi sao, the sticky hands training that developed sensitivity and reflexes, speed drills that would leave the audience questioning what they had seen. He had practiced these demonstrations hundreds of times, in his backyard, in his garage, in the minds of audiences who didn't exist yet. He had visualized this moment before it existed, had prepared for opportunities that hadn't yet materialized. This was Bruce Lee's genius. Not just physical talent, though he had that in abundance, but the ability to prepare for moments that others couldn't even imagine, to be ready for doors that hadn't yet opened, to believe so completely in his own destiny that when the chance came, he was already prepared to seize it. Ed Parker introduced him simply. A young martial artist from Hong Kong who has developed some interesting techniques. Let's see what he can do. Bruce Lee stepped onto the stage. What happened next became legend. He started with the one-inch punch. He asked for a volunteer from the audience. A man named Bob Baker stepped forward. Big guy, solid, the kind of person you wouldn't expect to be moved easily. Bruce Lee positioned himself with his fist 1 inch from Baker's chest. 1 inch. The distance between his knuckles and the volunteer's body was less than the length of a thumb. He didn't wind up. He didn't chamber his arm. He didn't shift his weight in any visible way. He simply released the punch. Baker flew backward. Not stumbled. Flew. His feet left the ground. He crashed into a chair that had been placed behind him to catch him, and the chair skidded several feet across the stage. The audience gasped, then fell silent, then erupted. What they had just witnessed violated everything they understood about the generation of power. A full punch uses the rotation of the hips, the extension of the arm, the transfer of body weight from back foot to front. Bruce Lee had done none of these things visibly, yet the power he generated was greater than most full punches they had ever seen. But Bruce Lee wasn't finished. He demonstrated his speed. He had a volunteer hold a coin in an open palm. Bruce Lee's hand hovered above. When the volunteer closed his fist, Bruce Lee would try to snatch the coin before the fingers closed. He didn't just snatch the coin. He replaced it with another coin. The volunteer closed his fist on a different coin than the one he had started with. Bruce Lee's hands had moved so fast that the human eye couldn't track them. The audience murmured in disbelief. They were martial artists themselves. They understood speed. They had trained for years to develop quick hands. What Bruce Lee was doing wasn't just faster than what they could do. It was faster than what they had believed was humanly possible. He demonstrated Chi-Sao with a volunteer, showing how sensitivity training allowed him to respond to attacks without seeing them. He stood with his eyes closed while the volunteer attempted to strike him. Every attack was intercepted, redirected, countered. It was as if Bruce Lee could see through his skin. He did push-ups on 2 fingers, not 5 fingers, not a full palm. 2 fingers supporting his entire body weight, rising and falling with perfect control. He performed kicks so fast that the audience heard the snap of his pants before they saw his leg move. The sound arrived before the visual information. Their brains couldn't process what was happening. And throughout it all, Bruce Lee explained what he was doing, not boastfully, methodically. He wanted the audience to understand that these weren't tricks. These were the results of correct training, correct principles, correct understanding of the human body and its capabilities. This is not magic, he told them. This is science. This is what happens when you remove everything that doesn't work and keep only what does. For 15 minutes, Bruce Lee showed the American martial arts community something they had never seen. Not just impressive techniques, a completely different approach to combat. Efficiency instead of tradition. Directness instead of formality. Results instead of ritual. When he finished, the applause was thunderous. But more important than the applause was what happened afterward. Ed Parker pushed through the crowd to reach Bruce Lee. The 2 men shook hands, and in that handshake, something was transmitted. Recognition, respect, the beginning of a partnership that would change both of their lives. "We need to talk," Parker said. "I have some people I want you to meet." Those people included a hairdresser to the stars named Jay Sebring, a man who counted among his clients some of the most famous actors in Hollywood. A man who, within days of the Long Beach demonstration, arranged for Bruce Lee to meet the producer William Dozier. That meeting led to an audition. The audition led to a screen test. The screen test led to a role in a new television series, The Green Hornet. Bruce Lee as Kato, not the lead, but visible on American television, demonstrating martial arts to millions of viewers who had never seen anything like it. The show only lasted one season, but that season changed everything. Audiences who had never heard of martial arts became fascinated. Children in playgrounds across America started imitating Kato's moves. Martial arts schools saw enrollment spike. A cultural shift was beginning, and Bruce Lee was at its center. More importantly, Hollywood saw that audiences responded to him. The camera loved him. His charisma translated through the screen. Even in a supporting role, even with limited screen time, he dominated every scene he was in. The door that had been closed was now open, and it all traced back to Ed Parker, to an invitation, to 15 minutes on a stage in Long Beach. The friendship between Ed Parker and Bruce Lee deepened over the years that followed. They were different in many ways. Parker was big, gregarious, a natural politician who navigated the martial arts community with diplomatic skill. Bruce Lee was intense, sometimes abrasive, unwilling to compromise his vision for the sake of social harmony. But they shared something fundamental. They were both innovators. They both believed that martial arts should evolve, should adapt, should serve the needs of the present rather than merely preserving the traditions of the past. They trained together when their schedules allowed. Parker would visit Bruce Lee in Los Angeles. Bruce Lee would attend Parker's seminars and tournaments. They exchanged techniques, ideas, philosophies. Parker later said that Bruce Lee was the most talented martial artist he had ever seen. Not the most skilled in any single area, but the most complete, the most adaptable, the most capable of finding solutions to problems that no one else had even identified. Bruce Lee, for his part, credited Parker with opening the door to everything that followed. Without Long Beach, there was no Green Hornet. Without the Green Hornet, there was no Hollywood career. Without the Hollywood career, there was no return to Hong Kong, no films, no global revolution in martial arts. Ed Parker made it all possible, Bruce Lee said in interviews. He believed in me when no one else in America did. This was not entirely true. Others had believed in Bruce Lee. Linda, his students, the small community of martial artists in Oakland and Seattle who had seen his gifts firsthand. But Parker's belief came with something the others couldn't provide: access, connections, the ability to translate belief into opportunity. That's what Ed Parker gave Bruce Lee at Long Beach. Not just a platform, but a bridge, a connection between the underground world of martial arts and the mainstream world of entertainment, a path from obscurity to legend. Bruce Lee died on July 20th, 1973. He was 32 years old. Ed Parker received the news in Hawaii, where he was visiting family. The shock was profound. Bruce Lee had seemed invincible. The idea that he could simply die, that his body could fail him the way ordinary bodies fail, seemed impossible. Parker flew to Seattle for the funeral. He was one of the pallbearers who carried Bruce Lee's coffin. He stood beside Steve McQueen, James Coburn, and the other men who had loved Bruce Lee and now had to say goodbye. In the years that followed, Parker often spoke about Bruce Lee at seminars and interviews. He told the story of Long Beach over and over, each time with the reverence of a man describing a miracle he had been privileged to witness. "I've seen many great martial artists," Parker would say, But I've only seen one Bruce Lee. There will never be another. Ed Parker himself died in 1990, at the age of 59. A heart attack took him suddenly, unexpectedly, the way death often takes those who seem too vital to die. But his legacy endures. American Kenpo continues to be practiced by thousands of students worldwide. The international karate championships he founded still take place, now one of the longest-running martial arts tournaments in the world. And the story of Long Beach 1964 has become part of martial arts mythology. The moment when a young unknown walked onto a stage and changed everything. The moment when Ed Parker looked at Bruce Lee and saw the future. The moment when a door opened and a legend walked through. Joseph Campbell wrote about the hero's journey, the call to adventure, the crossing of the threshold, the transformation from ordinary person to extraordinary being. For Bruce Lee, Long Beach was that threshold. He walked into the auditorium as a struggling martial artist with a dream. He walked out as someone who had been seen, recognized, validated by people with the power to make dreams real. Everything that followed, the television career, the films, the global fame, the revolution in martial arts, all of it traces back to those 15 minutes on that stage. But here's what makes the story profound. Bruce Lee was ready. When the moment came, when Ed Parker's invitation arrived, when the spotlight turned on, Bruce Lee delivered. Not because he was lucky, because he had prepared. Because he had spent years developing skills that no one else possessed. Because he had refined his approach until it was undeniable. Opportunity is worthless without preparation. Ed Parker could have invited 100 martial artists to Long Beach. Most of them would have given competent demonstrations that impressed no one in particular. Bruce Lee gave a demonstration that changed history. Because he was ready. That's the real lesson of Long Beach 1964. Not that Ed Parker discovered Bruce Lee, but that Bruce Lee had made himself discoverable. He had done the work. He had developed the skills. He had become someone worth discovering. Ed Parker provided the platform. Bruce Lee provided the performance. Together, they created a moment that neither could have created alone. That's how legends are made. Not by individuals acting alone, but by the right people finding each other at the right time. By preparation meeting opportunity. By talent meeting belief. Ed Parker believed in Bruce Lee before anyone else in America did. Bruce Lee gave Ed Parker something worth believing in. And from that mutual recognition, that moment of seeing and being seen, everything else flowed. The films that would change cinema, the philosophy that would change martial arts, the example that would inspire millions of people to believe that they too could transcend the limitations others placed on them. All of it began with an invitation, a demonstration, a handshake between two men who understood each other. And the world was never the same. August 2nd, 1964. Long Beach, California. A young man walks onto a stage. A fist travels 1 inch. A legend begins.